Who is this actually good for? Who should skip it? And is it worth the price for normal, everyday buyers? If you're standing in a warehouse, looking at a massive pallet of steel pipe and wondering whether a single piece of steel can bridge that gap without turning the whole operation into a safety nightmare, that's the moment I was in before I dug into the details of the Bluff 13SC7248 dock board. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The hesitation most of us feel isn't about the headline 13,000-pound capacity. It's about whether that number translates into a smooth, reliable daily workflow, and whether the board will actually fit the quirks of a real loading dock rather than the idealized dimensions you see on a spec sheet. Let's start with the environment this board is meant for. A dock board sits between the loading dock edge and a truck's trailer, turning a vertical drop into a gentle ramp that wheels can roll over. In a busy distribution center, that ramp gets used dozens of times per hour, often by forklifts carrying pallets that can weigh several thousand pounds. If the board flexes, shifts, or wobbles under load, you're looking at damaged goods, possible injury, and a lot of downtime. That's why the material and the load rating are the first things people scrutinize. The Bluff board is made from solid steel, a material that doesn't corrode quickly in a typical industrial environment, and it's rated for 13,000 pounds, enough to handle most standard pallet loads with a comfortable safety margin. But steel also brings its own trade-offs. A steel board of this size, 72 inches wide by 48 inches long, will weigh a lot, meaning the initial installation is not a DIY weekend project. You'll need at least 2 people with a forklift or a pallet jack to get it into place, and you'll want a level surface to set it on. If you're a small shop that only occasionally receives deliveries and you don't have heavy equipment on hand, the effort to move and secure the board could outweigh its benefits. In that scenario, a lighter aluminum or composite board might make more sense, even if the load capacity is lower. Now, who really gets the most out of this piece of equipment? If you run a medium to large warehouse that sees daily inbound and outbound trucks, especially if you handle heavy items like metal coils, timber, or machinery, this board fits right into your workflow. The 5 to 7 inch height range means you can adjust the board to match the dock height of most standard trucks, and the wide 72-inch span gives you a generous landing zone for larger pallets. In practice, that translates to less time spent aligning the forklift with a narrow ramp, fewer moments of hesitation, and a smoother transition from dock to trailer. Workers I've spoken with in similar facilities told me that the reduction in wiggle room when the board is properly positioned actually speeds up loading by a few seconds per pallet. Those seconds add up over a shift. On the flip side, if you're a retailer who only gets a few deliveries a week and you're using a standard pickup truck or a small box truck, the extra width and the steel weight might be overkill. You might end up storing the board most of the time, taking up valuable floor space, and then wrestling with it when the occasional large delivery arrives. For those occasional users, a foldable wooden or rubber-coated dock board, which can be tucked away when not in use, would likely be a more practical investment. Practical strengths of the Bluff board become clear when you think about durability. Steel doesn't warp under temperature changes, so you won't find the board sagging after a hot summer day or becoming brittle in a cold warehouse. The 13,000-pound rating isn't just a number on paper. It's a buffer that lets you stack heavier pallets or use a forklift with a longer fork without worrying about the board buckling. The board also comes with a call to customize option, meaning if your dock height is a bit outside the typical 5 to 7 inch range, you can request a specific cut to match your exact needs. That flexibility can be a lifesaver for older facilities that have non-standard dock dimensions. Where the product shows a hidden trade-off is in its surface finish. The steel is left with a plain, uncoated finish, which is great for durability but can be slippery when wet. In environments where water, oil, or other liquids splash onto the dock, you'll want to apply an anti-slip coating or use a rubber mat on top. Some users have reported that after a few weeks of exposure to rain, the surface can become a bit slick, so it's not a set-and-forget solution if you operate in a wet climate. That extra step adds a small ongoing maintenance task you need to factor into your decision. Another practical consideration is the connection system. The board uses a simple bolt-in method to attach to the dock lip, which is straightforward for a maintenance crew, but it does require you to